All right, today we're diving into a fascinating legal puzzle that made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court of the Philippines. It's a case about a contested will, a question of simple numbers, and what happens when one person tries to wear two hats at the same time.
So here it is, the central question that this entire case hangs on. It sounds pretty straightforward, right? But the answer actually uncovers a kind of logical impossibility and gets right to the heart of what legal integrity is all about.
First things first, let's set the stage and get the facts straight. Our story starts with the passing of a man named Valente Z. Cruz and the last will and testament he left behind.
Okay, let's meet our key players. First, you've got Valente Cruz. He's the testator, the person who made the will. Then there's his surviving spouse, Agapita Cruz, who is the petitioner. She's the one challenging the will. And finally, we have Manuel Lugay, the respondent, who was named the executor, the guy supposed to carry out the will's instructions. Now, Agapita Cruz's objection wasn't about what was in the will. Her issue was with how it was created. She basically argued that it failed to meet the very strict legal requirements to be valid, saying, hey, this wasn't executed according to the law. And now we're getting to the real core of the legal problem here. This is where a seemingly minor procedural detail just blows up into a major legal fight. You see, the law on this is incredibly specific. Think of it like a checklist. First, a will has to be signed by at least 3 credible witnesses. Second, the testator, the person making the will, and all those witnesses have to then acknowledge the will in front of a notary public. These are 2 separate, absolutely crucial steps. And on the surface, everything looked okay. Valente Cruz's will had 3 people who signed on as instrumental witnesses. So far, so good, you'd think. But here's the twist. That 3rd witness, attorney Angel H. Tevis Jr., was the exact same person who notarized the will. He was playing 2 roles, and that's where the troubles started. So this created the main legal showdown. Agapita Cruz's side argued that since a notary can't also be a witness, the will was legally only acknowledged by 2 witnesses, which doesn't meet the 3-witness requirement. But the executor argued for something called substantial compliance, basically saying, come on, the spirit of the law was met, this is just a technicality.
So how did the Supreme Court figure this one out? Let's get into their analysis, what lawyers call the ratio decidendi. The court didn't just count the names on the paper. It really dug into the nature of the act itself.
To really get the court's logic, we have to zoom in on one critical word, acknowledge. In legal terms, it means to avow something, to own it as genuine. The law says the witnesses have to do this before a notary, which means they have to declare, yes, this is my signature, in front of that official. And this is where the court just lays out this brilliant piece of logic. A person can't acknowledge something before themselves. As the court said, a person cannot split his personality into 2 so that one version of him can appear before the other. It's just a flat-out logical impossibility.
Think about it this way. It's like trying to be your own referee in a soccer match. You just can't be the player who scores the goal and also be the impartial official who confirms that the goal is valid. It completely defeats the entire purpose of having that independent check.
And that leads right into the second huge problem here. The whole point of a notary public is to act as an impartial guard against fraud. But if that notary is also a witness, that guardrail is gone. They suddenly have a personal stake in the will being seen as valid, which creates a massive conflict of interest and destroys their neutrality. So, after breaking down the law and listening to the arguments, the Supreme Court was ready to deliver its final verdict. And the court's ruling was crystal clear. The will was declared invalid. Why? Because it simply failed to meet the mandatory requirements of the law. At the end of the day, only 2 witnesses had properly acknowledged the will before a notary, not the required 3. So the court's final order, or its disposition, was to completely reverse the lower court's decision. The entire process of probating the will, that is, officially proving it, was stopped dead in its tracks. And this case left us with a really clear legal doctrine. A notary public simply cannot also act as one of the required witnesses to a will. The reason is twofold. First, because the act of acknowledging requires you to appear before an independent official, and you can't logically appear before yourself. And second, because it violates the notary's core duty of impartiality. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. While some legal rules might have a little wiggle room, This case is a powerful reminder that when you're dealing with something as important as a person's final wishes, the formalities aren't just technicalities. They are essential safeguards that have to be followed and followed strictly.